All right, everybody. Good afternoon. What is going on? Happy Sunday, day after the 2026 NFL Draft wraps up. And there are some lingering threads to work through here after the Seahawks made their 8 picks. And also, I guess you can factor in their UDFA and rookie minicamp stuff. But the main thing that people are talking about, and I have discussed this before, so I'm not really treading new ground here, but I think it's worth reiterating because we just wrapped up the draft and this is something that's on people's minds. What about edge rusher? What's going on there? Why did the Seahawks not do anything at edge rusher when they clearly had opportunities to do so? Even as late as the third day, there were appealing edge rushers they could have taken at various points. I'm not even talking about TJ Parker. I'm not even talking about the really good guys. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks, more on them a little bit later. But like I said in my video earlier this morning, the Seahawks replaced Tariq Woolen, Kobe Bryant, and Ken Walker. Those were 3 of their big losses this offseason. But they didn't really do anything to replace Boye Mafe, who was their 4th significant loss. And people are wondering, well, why is that? I think the answer is fairly clear. Now, one thing to point out is yesterday during the Mike Macdonald, John Schneider little press conference post-draft, Mike Macdonald had the opportunity to, excuse me. Sorry, guys, that one kind of popped up out of nowhere. But when Macdonald was asked about this, he did talk up some of the reserve edges we have. Guys like Jared Ivey, Jalen Gaines, Connor O'Toole, Jamie Sheriff. And there is some validity there. We clearly like them at least a little bit. But I wouldn't blame anybody for thinking, oh, that's just a coach defending his guys, and there's no reason to believe those guys are ever going to be anything other than decent depth. And that may be true. So I'm not really going to get into that too much. I think it's worth noting that this team seems to have an appreciation for guys like Jared Ivey and Connor O'Toole and Jamie Sheriff and Jalen Gaines. But I don't know if that translates to them becoming good defensive edge rushers for the Seattle Seahawks. Now, Brady Henderson kind of alludes to this here. Does John Schneider anticipate signing someone at edge? And John Schneider, when asked about this, said, yeah, we may. You had Corbin Smith here, who addressed the elephant in the room here. Dante Fowler Jr., who visited with the Seahawks a couple weeks ago, as Brady Henderson also mentioned here. Corbin Smith directly talks about Dante Fowler Jr. So they may sign him. You have Curtis Crabtree talking about Dante Fowler as well. I think about a week ago, it was Dan Viennes who said he believes there's about a 90% chance the Seahawks will sign Fowler. And I think it's important to understand that that is a very likely possibility right now. The main reason why it hasn't happened is because there is a cutoff date for when signings affect compensatory draft picks. And apparently that cutoff date is Monday. So literally tomorrow, or maybe it's Tuesday because Monday might be the last day. But I believe at least by Tuesday, and it doesn't really matter what day you do it, you're going to get to sign players willy-nilly without worrying about compensatory draft considerations. So you're going to get to keep all your comp picks, and you can still sign a player like Fowler for a little bit more money than some of the other guys you signed. So I think that's the play here. There's a lot of reason to believe this is the guy we get. And the important thing I want to stress here is Dante Fowler is going to do more for your team in 2026 than any of the edge rushers that we could have drafted. I firmly believe that. If you like sports, the best way to make them better and more exciting is using Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. Prize Picks, all you got to do is pick more or less on your favorite players' projections and build lineups with a few taps. It's the daily fantasy stuff, but it's made super easy over there. Whatever sport you're into, give it a shot. And right now, Prize Picks is hooking up users with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. All you have to do is use promo code HMA. I've had a great time on Prize Picks so far. It makes this daily fantasy thing very easy, and it makes watching the games way more exciting. Be sure to check out the social feeds feature so you can share lineups with your friends and tail partners or even fade their picks. Right now, Prize Picks is offering odds on the NFL draft. You have who's going to go where, what each team is going to do, how many of each position is going to go in each round, and so on and so on. Get on over to Prize Picks. Take advantage of that. So, download Prize Picks today, America's #1 sports app, and remember to use the promo code HMA. And remember, always gamble responsibly. That's not to say that Dante Fowler's an amazing player at this point, because he's not, but it needs to be understood the kind of player that you typically get as a rookie edge rusher that is not a super blue chipper, those are not the guys that are going to make a big impact. I'd say 95% of the time, if you draft an edge rusher, unless it's a super blue chipper, they don't do that much as a rookie. That is a position where you need the year to learn. And I think we have two great examples in recent years here in Seattle with Boye Mafe and Derek Hall. Both those guys ended up becoming capable NFL players, although we don't know the full story on Derek Hall yet. He's still young. But neither guy really did much of anything as a rookie. Boye Mafe did a little bit. His run defense was pretty good as a rookie, but Hall did nothing. And that is kind of the norm for the position when it comes to guys that aren't of the Will Anderson Jr., Von Miller. You could throw maybe Jadeveon Clowney in there. Those guys, the guys that go in the top 5 or top 10 of the draft, those edge rushers are low impact. So even if the Seahawks had drafted TJ Parker, which is a pick that I would have loved because I love TJ Parker, I think he's awesome. That's not really a player that you would have expected would have made a big impact on the 2026 Seahawks. Dante Fowler isn't an elite player or anything, but he is the kind of edge rusher that McDonald seems to gravitate towards. He's only going to be 32. He's played 17 games for 4 straight seasons, so he's stayed healthy. And he has had good production over the last 4 years specifically. Ever since he got to Dallas in 2022 under Dan Quinn, he's given 23.5 sacks. And even last year, where he had 3 sacks, and you might be thinking, oh, he's falling off. Look, the previous years he had more. And then he had 10.5 in Washington in 2024. And then 2025 with Dallas, he had 3. This is a fall off. Maybe a little bit, but you actually go down to the advanced numbers here. He had the same number of quarterback pressures in 2024 that he did in 2025. He had 20 in both, which is, by the way, about the same number that Boye Mafe had last year. It's comparable to Uchenna Nwosu and Derek Hall. So in terms of generating meaningful quarterback pressure, he was about as good last year as any edge rusher we had other than DeMarcus Lawrence. So I don't see a big fall off here. I just see some bad fortune, and there are logical reasons why this happens, right? Washington was good in 2024. They were playing from ahead a lot, right? That was a good team that made the NFC Championship game. Dallas was bad. They had one of the worst defenses in NFL history by DVOA. That was a bad team that played from behind a lot. It's harder to get sacks, especially when you can't count on your teammates being there to back you up. So I look at this and I see a player that is still good and better than anything we could have gotten from any rookie edge rusher we could have drafted. Dante Fowler has a great PFF grade from last year as well. So while he may not be the most productive, he is considered a very stable and dependable edge rusher that holds up against the run and doesn't get too out of control and lose his assignment and get put in bad situations very much. So a guy like a Dante Fowler Jr., as a veteran, as somebody that has been in this league a long time, played on a bunch of different teams, played in different systems and situations, he is going to give you more than even like a high second round caliber edge rusher or a late first. So it's just one of those things where Dante Fowler Jr., if he is the play, yeah, it's not great for the long term. He's probably a 1-year stopgap, but that 1-year stop is good. And like I've talked about before, this is not the only guy the Seahawks are likely to go after signing. Whether or not they even get Dante Fowler, there are other players to look at. Like, I just pulled up the Spotrac page here, actually, real quick, to give you an idea of the available edge rushers. Hassan Reddick, Joey Bosa, Leonard Floyd, Nico Autry. He's going to be 36. That's probably a little too much. There are some guys here that I'm not super into, but Von Miller, he almost signed here last year. He probably wants to this year. Cameron Jordan is still available. Would be a great fit. AJ Epinesa, if you think you can get something good out of him. Kyle Van Noy is actually a lot of fun, I think, to think about. Clowney, we always talk about Clowney around here. Marcus Davenport is kind of an interesting guy to me. I kind of like that one a little bit. There are a lot of veteran edge rushers, and most of them, I'm going to say it again, especially once you get into the later portions of this draft, are going to give you more than what a guy like even TJ Parker would have given you, or Tyreek. Once you get down into the later parts of the draft, Tyreek Sapp, Michael Kamara, who signed UDFA with the 49ers, Vinny Anthony Jr., Mason Riger. These are the guys that some people were lamenting, oh, we should have gotten that guy. And I would have been cool with that, but understand the nature of the position. First year edge rushers, unless they're freaks, typically do not do much. So if you want to make this team the best possible team for a 2026 repeat, which is clearly the approach here, this is going to go further. Having Dante Fowler on your roster gets you closer to repeating in 2026 than it does to have even, I think, a TJ Parker. As much as I like him, I have to admit that because that's just the way the edge rusher position tends to work in the NFL. All right. That's just something I wanted to cover here real quick. So that's the defense of it. But the overall message here is that there are a lot of people who think this Seahawks team will get Fowler in the coming days, coming weeks, coming months. It doesn't really matter, by the way. We could sign Fowler in August and it's fine. It's not like he needs training camp. Maybe he needs to come in to learn the defense a little bit, but he's an edge rusher. It's not really the most intensive thing for a guy like that. All right. Let me know what you guys think. Dante Fowler should be coming. I wouldn't mind doubling up here, by the way. You could get Dante Fowler and Jadeveon Clowney or Cam Jordan or Von Miller or whoever and just go 5 deep at edge because you are a little bit shallow. So maybe try to be spread out wide, if that makes sense. All right. Let me see you. I'm going to post at least one more video later today. I think maybe 2, but a lot to talk about. Definitely trying to capture the spirit of this draft. And I think we're in a pretty good spot, guys. I'm excited to see what happens next. All right, go Hawks.